Alright, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started here, guys. We're actually working on simple proportions. This is lesson 0.6, and we're going to be focused in this case, guys, on solving for unknown variables in given proportions and also creating proportions and solving them as well. So let's go ahead and get started in this case, guys. Once again, students can solve for missing values of a proportion by using inverse operations. A few in this case, guys, vocabulary words, we have simplify, factor, and inverse operation. Now, just to recap in this case, guys, or have a bit of a review, because we're working with proportions, there are going to be some operations we're going to be working with, especially in this case, guys, multiplication and division. Now, these are actually inverse operations, right? Whenever we have, for example, an expression that's being multiplied, if I want to go ahead and solve for it or do its inverse operation, I would do the opposite, which is division. Same thing if I were to be dividing, opposite of division is multiplication. So let's go ahead and get started in this case, guys. Jump to it. Starting off with the first one in this case, directions. I want to go ahead and solve for the unknown variable, and I need to simplify my answers if needed here, right? So I have my equation in this case, guys, which is x over 8 equal to 5 over 2. Now, when it comes to proportions in this case, guys, we actually want to go ahead and focus in this case, guys, on solving for the missing variable, right? Now, what we're first going to start off in this case, guys, is we're actually going to start off using cross multiplication, right? Cross multiplication. I'm going to go ahead and do steps here on the side, steps, right? First thing I need to do in this case, guys, is do cross multiplication or cross multiply, right? What that does in this case, guys, is that I have to multiply, in this case, the numerator, which is the top number of the fraction, by the denominator of the other fraction, right? And then I'll go ahead and do the same with the 8 and the 5. So I color coded in this case the ones that are going to be multiplied. Now, when I multiply, I have the following. I have 2 times an x is equal to 8 times a 5. Right? If I multiply this out, I know that 2 times x is actually just going to become a 2x, and that I know that 8 times 5 is actually going to give us a 40. Right? A 40 here. Now, the goal in this case, guys, is to actually isolate or leave alone the x. I want to go ahead and leave alone the x here. In order for us to do that, I need to do an inverse operation. Now, whenever we're working in this case with a term that is attached to, we have a coefficient, right, and a variable, right? You have a number and a letter attached to each other. The operation that's happening between them is actually multiplication. It's not seen, but we know that there's multiplication, right? We actually just saw it here, right? And we're seeing it there again, right? We just don't show it anymore, right? So there's multiplication there. I mentioned in this case that the inverse multiplication is division. So we're going to go ahead and actually divide both sides by 2 to leave the x alone, right? If I check in this case, 2 divided by 2, that's actually going to give me a 1. So in reality, I have left x is equal to 40 divided by 2 is 20. So our final answer in this case, guys, is going to be 20. Now, steps in this case, guys, that I probably forgot to write down is that I'm going to go ahead and actually divide by 2. Divide by 2, right? That's what we did, divide by 2. And then we simplify our answer, which is our third step, simplify. Simplify. Right, so that was the first one, guys. That is example A. We're going to go ahead and do a couple more of these examples. Hopefully with practice in this case, guys, we can see exactly what we're doing. Moving on to B. Here is problem B. Go ahead and write that down. I have 2 over 9 is equal to x over 27, right? Now, first step, number 1, is I want to go ahead and cross multiply. Once again, in this case, guys, I mentioned that if we're doing cross multiplication here, I'm going to go ahead and multiply the numerator. Once again, numerator is the top number of fraction. by the denominator of the other fraction, denominator being the bottom number of a fraction, right? So cross multiplication, like an x. I'm going to go ahead and multiply those two. Same idea in this case with the denominator of the first fraction by the numerator of the second fraction, cross multiplication. So let's go ahead and start. In this case, guys, I'm going to go ahead and start with 2 times 27 because that's going to multiply. And then I'm also going to go ahead and multiply 9 times x, 9 times x, all right? 9 times x. Now, from there in this case, guys, let's go ahead and multiply this out. Whether we know this from the top of our head or we know it using a calculator, right? I could actually take out a calculator if I find one. Let's go ahead and check. Oh, I don't have one. Let's go ahead and let's just do it like that, right? 2 times 27 is actually going to give me 54. And 9 times x is actually just going to be a 9x in this case. I mentioned in this case, guys, the operation that's happening between the 9 and the x is multiplication, right? The operation there is multiply, right? We're multiplying there. So inverse of multiplication in this case, guys, inverse of multiplication is division. The only way for me to get rid of the 9, right? Only way for me to get rid of the 9 because it's multiplying, I have to divide. And what you do to one side, you repeat to the other. This creates a balance, right? So step number 2 is to divide by 9. Divide by 9. Divide by 9. I know that 9 divided by 9 is going to give me a 1. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down the x, right? I could put a 1x, but it's just going to be an x. And I know that 54 divided by 9 is going to give me a 6. So final answer in this case, guys, is going to be 6 as our answer. 6 equals x or x equals 6.